Welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston. Join Dr. Pinkston today as she teaches you how an integrative approach to health, combining holistic and contemporary medical information, can lead you to the better life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston, and welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston. We're getting ready to go into a new year. There's been lots of things happening this year, so I want to cover a very important topic, and I am bringing my friend Kyle Sinclair, local hospital CEO, and so very knowledgeable in the realm of healthcare and insurance. And I know the news lately has been about the CEO that was murdered up in New York, and so a lot of controversy surrounding that has brought this to a light, though, and I think people are, more aware. It's I don't condone murder for bringing things to light, but I'm hoping at this point we can solve a few things. And so, with your long history of working with the government, you ran for Congress, and I hope you will someday too.
We'll see.
You're
we'll
awesome.
See. Yeah, thank you.
We can talk you into it. We will. But I know what do you see now as maybe I guess maybe what we should do is kind of define the problem first, and then walk into some solutions.
Yeah, that's it. Well, first off, thanks for having me on the show again. It's always great to be on with you, and you do such a phenomenal job. So I'm always excited to talk to you and love what you do. I would say to answer that question immediately, it's a very complicated problem,
isn't it? Not
healthcare in general is very complicated,
yes,
and the lay member of society that's not involved in healthcare every day doesn't understand it. I always joke and say I have a bachelor's and master's in health administration, almost 20 years, and I still don't understand it, right?
I'm a doctor. I follow right behind you. I still don't, all right?
So that it's complicated. And then you see some of the waste, the fraud and the neglect that goes on in healthcare. And then as a member of society who utilizes healthcare, who doesn't understand the system, gets trapped in one of these crazy scenarios of insurance is not covering, I can't get my medicine, I can't get this service done, and you start seeing all this pinch. And then as a physician side, you see a lot of it on the insurance of reimbursement, of audits, of getting authorizations, et cetera.
Absolutely.
So, but I would say overall when you look at healthcare, you look at three things: access to care, quality, and cost.
Yeah. Right?
Those are the three big things when you want to define healthcare. On that, and you can spend time talking about each of them. But that's a tough subject. I would say jumping into your original question is what I find very interesting as society where we are is there are people that are proud of what he did. Mm-hmm. There are people that are praising what he did, and there are people that are literally joyful that happened to a human being.
Which is frightening.
That is a very odd place to be as a society that whoever celebrates that is celebrating death.
Exactly.
And killing of another human being. So, I think there are some underlining obviously things that you mentioned that we should and could need to do, but that for me is probably the most very interesting thing as society living through this period. So
I
I'll
agree.
pause there, but yeah.
I agree completely. So in the insurance industry, how do they go about denials? What is their... I know you're right. As a physician, I have met this many times. I've done peer-to-peer reviews over patients' charts of things that I've ordered that I think they need. I've had to argue for weeks and get things denied and then try again. What is your point of view on the insurance side?
Yeah, I would say probably the fastest growing population of the health insurance side is the Medicare Advantage plans.
Right.
And the largest insurance in the world is United Healthcare.
Yes.
In the entire world. Yes. Multi-billion-dollar industry.
Absolutely.
Right? Well, in order for any Medicare Advantage plan to make money, they take the Medicare dollars that you paid in, they take that and they manage that dollar for the patient on behalf of the federal government and under Medicare.
Right.
In order to make money, the only way you can do that on the insurance side is by denying services or limiting what they are able to do, who they're able to see, what prescriptions they're able to get, what type of tests they're able to do, what physicians they can go to, what geographical territory, right? Insurances or the services such as which hospital they can go to, what services they'll cover. They will even, I find mind-blowing an insurance just this past week, not United, I'm not going to name it, you can look it up, that literally had the audacity to say they would stop paying for, in the middle of a procedure, for anesthesiology.
Absolutely. Yes. A patient is under. It's a long case. You're taking out a kidney. There's a complication. They're bleeding. You go past the, 6 or 8 hour window into 10, 12 hours, which happens, and they're not going to pay for anesthesia past the 8th or 9th hour, right?
I can't even comprehend
Absolutely.
something like that. Now you can go into the world of the individual who killed somebody, and they're not obviously in their right mind. Anybody who moves forward with trying to kill anybody, you're obviously not in the right place.
Absolutely.
You're not there. There's no way to justify it at all. But you can see why people start getting that type of desperate, that type of what goes on in this community. So how do you solve it? That's a very, very complicated thing, because healthcare is very complicated to the point where nobody can fix it. I mean, last time you had a big change in government healthcare was Affordable Care Act under Obama. It's been a mess since then.
Absolutely.
I have talked to many members of Congress, about 20 of them in the last 2 weeks, about is healthcare going to even make the continuing resolution that was part of last week's not trying to shut down the government. Is healthcare even going to make it?
Right.
And I had several of them that say, no, it's not. It's not top priority. They don't think they're going to do anything. It's not going to be on the floor from the House. President Trump's not going to do it because there's not going to be able to get any movement.
Right.
We're all over the place.
So here we are. Here we are. And the denial aspect, crosses so many lines. I think that's what originally this gentleman who, murdered this man up in New York, I think that is what, it was a family member, correct? I
believe
don't
so.
watch the news. I really don't.
Yeah,
I try to stay
I believe
away
it was
from
a family member that was denied
services. And so is it true that they will deny a first try for most procedures or testing or whatnot? Because it seems that most of the time I'll try to get things through. Generally, with the insurances, things go through. There are some insurances, though, that get an automatic denial, and then we have to pursue it. So I have office staff who I'm not paying to work on one patient's chart and insurance approval, but they'll spend hours on this. I'll give you an example. I had a patient who had knee surgery through her surgeon. The surgeon tried to get health care through the hospital, order it through the hospital. She could go home with home health care, wound care, blood pressure care. And it was denied by the insurance. So she went home without any home health care and anybody to help her. She couldn't walk. It was a knee surgery. So she turned to us. Her PCP called our office, and my office manager just took it upon herself to go. She got approval from me, of course, for home health, but did all of this. The surgeon got paid for the surgery. The hospital got paid. We haven't seen her. We haven't done anything. And she is, we are going to bat for her. It took Jennifer 2 days to talk, the insurance into allowing this patient to have home health. 2 days. Now, that takes away from other patients and the priorities and things that Jennifer has to work on. It's a small office. But this is what we meet often. It's usually that first denial. That's my original question. It's that first denial. And then we have to go to bat, and we have to go and fight it. Most of the time, we overcome it. Most of the time, not always. So I think what this gentleman may have thought is that, upon first denial, losing a family member and, something being denied, a patient is being hurt. Ultimately, they may die. That's a life loss. And may have thought maybe this was eye for eye. I can't explain it, and I never will be able to. But insurances, do they have that first right of denial?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me preface for anybody watching and listening, I'm not on the insurance industry.
Of course
I know
not.
a lot of chief medical officers for insurance companies. I know a lot of people in the insurance industry that work for that.
Absolutely.
What I would share is that, again, they make money when they are able to deny services, right? And so I would also share that the best route of any patient that's a geriatric population, and our standards geriatric 65 years and older, who's a Medicare recipient, right? And what they get sold is that if you join United, if you join any type of Medicare Advantage plan, we'll take care of your pharmacy costs, we'll take care of, and they can just start layering on stuff, right? Yeah. What I share with every patient is that you have to give something up in order to get that other service covered. And what you give up is access to physicians that will take care of you, access to services that should be deemed necessary and appropriate, and access to other items in order for them to be able to make their money up. So I'll give you an example. My mom was in just this past year in that Medicare age. What should I do? And I said, stay straight Medicare.
Yes.
Buy a supplemental, that's fine.
Get a supplement.
Which is usually you have to buy into B, right?
Yes.
The B is your ancillary service,
yes.
Outpatient services, and your physicians.
Yes.
And then D is your pharmacy. It's a little bit extra money, but you keep the freedom and the flexibility, and they won't deny you services. And you get to go where you want to go.
Absolutely.
But yeah, in regards to insurances, they do deny, and you do have to appeal. What I find fascinating about the insurance world, what they need to fix is, depending on which service you're going after to appeal, they could have a OBGYN or ophthalmologist denying for a completely different level of care.
Right.
So they don't mirror what you're asking for.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So, and to the viewers, I mean, that's a big thing. You won't see a lot of that behind the scenes.
Right.
But appealing and that's the best way you can is to go after that service. Again, my recommendation, anybody who's having those problems of being denied insurance services or a service line, get off of that and go back to straight Medicare. And you have a right to do that.
You do.
And you're
all year,
able
correct?
to do it all year.
Absolutely.
There's open enrollment time periods.
Right.
You can have a change of condition. You can have any type of issue that allows you to. But yes, that's my recommendation.
Yes.
Go back to straight Medicare.
Absolutely. And I do want people to understand you can all year long. They tell you open enrollment, as you said, that's November to about January or so. And most patients are like, well, I'm stuck with this until next year. It's like, no, you are not stuck with this. You can change. On the front of the, denials and appeals. So another thing I'd like for people to understand and know is that, and I know you're not, not an insurance expert, but you're a healthcare expert, and so it's just a new light. I think I trust your judgment on so many things. But the, on the denials, you have to have a physician who's willing to go to bat for you, first of all. And it's very, very difficult to do. I have spent countless hours on the phone, with the medical directors who've never spent even an hour in a clinic, taking care of patients, trying to explain to them why this lady with an ectopic pregnancy needs to see an OB-GYN today. Yeah. Right? And so it's insane. I think sometimes the insurances now automatically approve a lot of things through me because they know I'm going to go to bat for my patients. But there's so many physicians who won't do that. It's very time-consuming, very expensive in your office to do.
Yeah, I mean, you look as a whole in a nation, we spend about 17% of our GDP, which is roughly about $4.5 trillion a year in insurance.
Lord.
It's a massive amount. It is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. That's just insurance coverage. And then you can layer on pharmaceuticals, you can layer on all sorts of other things. That it is a massive, massive business. And for those of you who don't recognize, healthcare is a business.
It is. It is.
There's no way around it.
It
so
is.
The companies have to be profitable. Physicians have to make money in order to get into it. You recognize the service lines that don't make money because you always have shortage in those areas because there's no money in it. So that's one. The other thing I find interesting is that you have to be able to not only fight it, but it's the administration costs. They're saying the administration cost nationally is anywhere from about 20 to 40% of every dollar that is spent in America. So if you're talking $4.5 trillion, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars just to administer how that patient goes, how they move, whether you're doing audit, whether you got to spend time on it. It is a very complicated case.
Absolutely.
And you can bring it down to one case. You can do national level, state level. I mean, the state of Texas, the amount of money they spend. I was just on the phone with the chief medical officer for Medicaid 2 weeks ago for the state of Texas, the entire state of Texas. There's 29 million people here, and he's over Medicaid and some of the issues and complexities they have. So it's very complicated, which is why it's very hard to tackle.
It is. And so, thanks for saying so. It is a business.
There's no way around it.
There's no way around it. And I think sometimes patients don't really understand that it's a business, even at the so I'm probably one of the very last few sole providers. There's so very few. Everybody is now being purchased by different corporate entities. And I have survived all this time, 24 years now, as a lone standing physician. And the cost behind that is, I can't even find a word for it, Kyle. It is going to drive me out of business at some point, and I don't want it to, but it's going to drive me out of business at some point. The choices that I want to leave behind for my patients are not something that I want from a corporate world, but this is a business, and that's what ultimately where it's going to land. It's very heartbreaking. So, patients have a lot to realize about it, and I'm hoping we're educating them just a little bit.
The one thing I'll share real fast is kind of interesting you said that is the insurance world probably 5, I would say max 10 years ago became in the driver's seat of healthcare.
It did.
And they started taking control over. And you're seeing actually here in Bexar County about 65% of all the patients have moved to a Medicare Advantage plan.
Yeah.
So they've gone on this massive selling I would say scheme, but selling of the insurance over their traditional, and it's impacting where physicians can't practice appropriately, hospitals can't do stuff appropriately on that. The other thing I'll mention, this is a very tough subject, is our normal society does not understand the levels of care. And what I mean by that, and you and I have had conversations in the past, that a patient who is sick or sniffles or even a sprained ankle, they'll go to the ER. That's the most expensive setting out of our entire healthcare system for common things, right? They don't go to clinics. They don't go to their physician when they can. They go to the ER. And so what I find fascinating, I still remember a professor of mine who said that we need to view insurance as car insurance. We don't use car insurance to change our oil, to change our tires, to get wiper fluid, to... We use insurance in cars for catastrophic accidents only.
Absolutely.
But yet we expect insurance to pay for everything in healthcare.
Absolutely.
And so that burden of cost needs to be pushed down onto the actual member of society. But you've got to know how much you're paying. You've got to be competitive pricing. There's a lot of things that can go into that complexity of that. So, but I'll share some of that. But yeah, it's kind of fascinating.
I think that's very well said. I have some experience of that when I first got started. Because when I first started back in 2000, I was right on that border. I was private pay for a very short period of time when I first got into my first MSO, right? And it started to channel and started to change. The first check I got from an insurance company was $1.36. So there you go. We're going to take a short break and come back with Kyle and talk a little bit more about insurance coverage. So hang in there, and we'll be right back.
Depression, anxiety, low energy, weakness, these are just some symptoms of low B12 levels. And the absorbable B12 folate supplement that's helping people declare victory over depression symptoms is De Novo Plus B12 by Magna Pharmaceuticals. Patients with symptoms of depression often exhibit low levels of folate and vitamin B12. The human body needs sufficient folate intake to produce the essential neurotransmitters serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. These neurotransmitters alleviate feelings of sadness, anxiety, and gloom. What makes De Novo Plus B12 so successful? De Novo Plus B12 contains readily absorbable folate and B12. That means it's more successful at correcting the root cause of your deficiency, not just the symptoms. Whether you are suffering with low energy, depression, fatigue, or anxiety, you owe it to yourself to learn more at magnaweb.com. That's magnaweb.com. Please let us know at checkout that you heard about De Novo Plus B12 on The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Marianne Pinkston, here with Kyle Sinclair, and we've covered a lot of ground and have to do it fairly quickly. We've got a few minutes left, and so over the break, we were talking a little bit about our veterans and maybe some of the things that are coming down the pike for not just veterans, but for everybody. But I know something upsets you, that upsets me as well, and that we hope that the new president will take over and adjust for. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is, one of the great things in 2016 Trump administration is that they approved veterans leaving the VA system and taking those benefits to the community-based health care, which is great. Again, access to care was a big problem in the VA, right? The timeliness of tests, of physicians, of getting in is a big deal. So that allows that access side to go into that. There's a couple of things that are extremely upsetting. The cost of healthcare is astronomical as a nation. We just kind of went over some of that. The burden is being pushed and squeezed right now. Federally, I've talked to probably 5 direct members of Congress, sitting members of U.S. Congress, and all of them have asked me about cutting of healthcare. That is a hot topic, trying to cut.
Yes.
Right? Our country's in debt. We're $35 trillion in debt. We spend more than $1 trillion in interest, which is more than we spend our entire national defense. It's unsustainable as a nation. Yeah. And healthcare is on that trajectory as well. Yes. The spending is out of control, and how do you cut it? I know one of the things that I just saw this week on DOGE, the DOGE Commission, which is the Department of Government Efficiency, put on commission by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, is they're looking at healthcare, and particularly at the VA system of the waste and neglect that is going on there, and the billions of dollars that we spend on the VA system. And if you spend any time in the Bexar County, we're a huge military city. We're called Military USA. Absolutely. We have one of the level 1 trauma military world-renowned centers at Brooke Army Medical Center. Absolutely. They have a Center for Intrepid, which is world-renowned for amputees, and what they do is phenomenal. And then you get into our VA system itself, which are 2 separate things, issues. What I find fascinating and angry at the same time is we have had roughly about 12 million people that we know have come into this country illegally. And under the Biden administration, they have promised every single one of them free health care. Free health care. And our veterans who have given their service, their time, their limbs, their sacrifice, and some of them their life, have to beg, borrow, and steal in order to be seen at a decent time, at a decent rate.
Absolutely.
And access to health care is not there for them.
Absolutely.
And it's something that is infuriating to me. I do know it's a big deal for health for the Trump administration, this incoming administration. I hope that Robert Kennedy Jr. will do good under Center of Health and Human Services. I hope that Dr. Oz will do good as he's in part of his cabinet. I do think we need healthcare change. Yeah. And when I ran for Congress in 2022, there's 535 members of the U.S. government, 435 in the House, and 100 U.S. senators makes up the 530. We had 1 hospital administrator, and we had about 15 physicians on the physician caucus who made the decision of 17% of our GDP, or $4.5 trillion. And the only way they make their decisions is by healthcare lobbyists, hospital lobbyists, and special interest groups.
Absolutely.
And that's infuriating that they're making the decisions on behalf of veterans and what happens to all of us. So that's a hot topic. I know it's something you're talking about. I mean, what are your thoughts on that level?
The lobbyists. I think that was where the pharmaceutical industry is the topic that I could go off on the most. Yeah. Now, I understand they have a lot of research. I understand there's a lot of money that goes into this, but even I was telling you this morning, and I think I was telling you, I was also talking to a good friend of mine, that I'm unable to get a medication that I need for rheumatoid arthritis because I'm being denied by the insurance company. I tried to go to the pharmaceutical company, and it's $6,000 a month. Yeah. And so it is beyond me how we can, enjoy the fruits of the lobbyists that stand in Washington and talk to our politicians who, few physicians, few healthcare related, mostly lawyer, and expect to fix this system. Even I feel the AMA is behind that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Side. It really is.
The pharmaceutical is interesting, too, because what they will do is they will go to other countries and do their trials and their studies while they're waiting for FDA approval in the United States. Once they get the FDA approval, they actually will increase it by 1,000 or 2,000% in order to make their money. Absolutely. As they have that 10-year patent. Most patents are about 10 years. Right. But there is actually just discovered in England that they actually are drug cost is extremely low. I'm not a huge fan of oh my God, I can't think of the Dallas Mavericks owner. Mark Cuban. Not a huge fan of him personally.
But the pharmaceutical...
It's a cost plus drug, or drug plus cost, and it's only like a 5% markup. And there are drugs that you can get that are extremely... And I think he's doing a little bit of a dent in that pharmaceutical industry. The other thing I find fascinating about this, I know we are short on time, is the unhealthy lifestyle right, that we have in America that's causing so many drugs, so many chronic problems that we aren't addressing that, and we're layering on more pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely. That's where I was going to hit next as my interest, because I'm wondering, why do we need the pharmaceuticals in the first place? And that goes back to the, the terrible problem with our foods and how it's grown, and genetic modifications, and the lack of knowledge that doctors have about, natural therapies, vitamins, and things like that. And so, and that's what this show has been all about, and I've been trying to do for the last 3 years, and you've helped greatly. I appreciate it so much. So, well, we may have to have 16 or 20 shows in order to get this topic taken care of, but I really appreciate you coming on today and speaking a lot about it. And we do have a couple of previous shows that we did, if people want to go back and look. Way more information there. We have talked about this topic before, so glad to have you again.
Absolutely.
And I hope to see you run again one of these days.
We'll see. That's a complicated process, too.
It is absolutely, and very difficult. And I know it was a difficult year for you as well. But Kyle, thank you. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody out there, and Happy New Year. We'll see you in the next year.
You've been enjoying The Better Life with Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston. For more information, go to drpthebetterlife.com. That's drpthebetterlife.com. And listen next week for The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston.